Hi everyone, I'm Dcielo, and welcome to part 4 of this painting series. In this session, the artwork moves much closer to its completion. You'll see the entire process of developing and finishing the bread, the orange, and the white drapery. In the next video, I'll complete the final work on the cloth, show the framing process, and share the exhibition where this painting will be displayed. As I mentioned in the previous episodes, I'm working with a very limited color palette. Because of that, I build the painting through multiple layers of color, including glazes, gradually refining and adjusting the tones until they achieve the result I'm looking for. The bread and the mandarin share the same atmosphere and a very similar color palette. What really distinguishes them is their texture, and that's what I try to emphasize as I paint. To create this color, I mix yellow and red, using mostly yellow. I also leave some areas unpainted for now, since I'll add the highlights later. At this stage, my goal is simply to establish the overall base color. For the darker areas, I increase the amount of red and add a little burnt sienna along with a touch of black to deepen the shadows while keeping the warmth of the composition. For the midtones, I apply a fairly light color, knowing that I'll later modify it with a glaze. Once the glaze has dried, I'll build the highlights again, and if necessary, continue adding more glazes until the color reaches the balance I'm looking for. If you have any questions about the techniques or the painting process, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. And if there's a particular object you'd like me to paint or study in a future video, let me know. I'd be glad to consider it for a future drawing or painting study. As I continue working on the drapery, I begin defining the folds with pure white. At the moment, I'm working in acrylic, so the approach is a little different. Even when using a retarder, acrylic paint dries very quickly. If I were painting in oils, I would rely much more on the sfumato technique, which consists of softening the transitions between light and shadow so that no visible edges remain. Another technique I often use in oil painting is the dry brush. It involves loading the brush with very little paint and using little or no medium. With acrylics, however, those smooth transitions have to be achieved much more quickly because of the fast drying time. For that reason, I don't rely on the dry brush as much. Water-based acrylic behaves very differently from oil paint, so each medium requires its own approach. Every painting medium has its own way of being used, and I've only been working with acrylics for a relatively short time. But as I've mentioned before, repetition is the mother of learning. Once the folds of the drapery are established, I usually reinforce some of the darker areas to create even greater depth, especially in the shadows beneath the plate. After the white paint has dried, which happens very quickly with acrylics, I apply a glaze of burnt sienna. Once that is dried, I apply a second glaze using a warm yellow with a strong green bias. Because both layers are transparent, the optical interaction between them creates a subtle green tone rather than simply covering the previous color. From there, I begin painting the midtones to create smooth transitions and soften the treatment of the fabric. Finally, I build up the brightest highlights with 2 or 3 additional layers until I'm satisfied with the result. There are a few final adjustments that I wasn't able to record. They mainly involve going back over each object, making small refinements, and bringing the entire composition together. Once those final touches are complete, The only step remaining will be to apply the final varnish, as I mentioned earlier. For this painting, I'll also be using a frame with a custom finish. Although the frame is entirely gold, I'll be modifying the sides with a different color to better complement the artwork. I hope you'll join me for the next and final episode, where I'll complete this painting and share the finished result. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.